We're here in Statuary Hall in the United States Capitol in front of the statue was placed here recently of Rosa Parks, who led the bus boycott in Montgomery, Alabama in the mid-1950s. This is Black History Month. February is Black History Month. One of the most important parts of that history was the civil rights movement in the early 1960s. And an instrumental figure and leader in that movement was my friend and colleague here in the House, Representative John Lewis, who at the time was a young student, part of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. Mr. Lewis, it's been great to know you, and it's been a real privilege. Could you share some thoughts about your experience there as a young person in the early 1960s in the civil rights movement?
Well, my friend, thank you so much, my friend and my brother, for having me here. I grew up in rural Alabama, 50 miles from Montgomery, outside of a little place called Troy. When I was growing up, I saw the signs that said white waiting, white men, white women, colored women. But in 1955, 15 years old in the 10th grade, I heard of Rosa Parks. I heard the words of Martin Luther King Jr. on radio. And the action of Rosa Parks and the words of Dr. King inspired me to find a way to get involved in the American Civil Rights Movement. I met Rosa Parks in 1957, and the next year, in 1958, I met Martin Luther King Jr. And I started studying the way of peace, the way of love, the way of nonviolence. I didn't like those signs. I didn't like what I saw. And I asked my mother and my father and my grandparents. They said, that's the way it is. Don't get in the way, don't get in trouble. But I was inspired to get in trouble. I started sitting in.
A good kind of trouble.
Good kind of trouble. It was good. Was sitting in, went on the freedom ride. We were beaten, we was left bloody, but we never turned to violence. The action of Rosa Parks, the words and leadership of Dr. King inspired me. And our country today is a much better country because people stood up and spoke up. And you know, Black history, African American history is American history.
Right.
We all should know the price that people pay to make our country a better place.
So you've led for many years, and I was privileged to join you, I know Senator Coons has as well, at the Civil Rights Pilgrimage through Alabama. Talk a little bit about the Selma March for Voting Rights, and I know you were beaten as part of a demonstration march on a Sunday that's now referred to as Bloody Sunday.
Well, in Selma, Alabama, like so many other places in the Deep South, African American could not register to vote simply because of the color of their skin. People were asked to continental of bubbles in a bar of soap, continental of jelly beans in a jar. People stood in a movable line. There were African American lawyers and doctors and teachers, college professors. Over and over again, they was told, you didn't qualify, you didn't pass the literacy test. They got arrested, they were jailed, they were beaten. And one day, March 7, 1965, we decided to march from Selma, Alabama to Montgomery, 50 miles walk. We were beaten, left bloody, some of us was left unconscious. But because of what happened on that Sunday, President Lyndon Johnson came and spoke to a joint session of Congress and introduced the Voting Rights Act. It was passed by the Congress and signed into law on August 6, 1965, and it's changed America forever.
That was a big day and a happy day, I'm sure.
It was a glorious day. It was like somebody had spoken from someplace, changed America.
You've shared with me from time to time your experience speaking at the March on Washington where Martin Luther King made his famous I Have the Dream speech. You were one of the speakers, the youngest speaker, I think, that day. Talk about that.
Well, on August 28, 1963, we had the March on Washington. 10 people were selected to speak. I was 23 years old.
23 years
23 years old. I spoke number 6. Dr. King spoke number 10. And I tell you, it was very, very moving to be there on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial and seeing Martin Luther King and hearing him. He turned those marble steps of the Lincoln Memorial into a modern-day pulpit. He really preached that day. And when the march was all over, when the 10 of us had finished speaking, President Kennedy invited us down to the White House, and he stood in the door of the Oval Office, greeting each one of us. He was beaming like a proud father. He kept saying, "You did a good job, you did a good job." And when he got to Dr. King, he said, "You did a good job, and you had a dream." That was my last time seeing President Kennedy.
Well, I got to tell you, it's been a great privilege serving with you and serving every day in this house, the People's House, with somebody who's truly a historic figure in our country. And I just want to thank you for all the things that you've done for all of America.
Well, thank you. I really have enjoyed serving with you. You're my friend, and you're my brother.
And you're going to come to Delaware next month, I understand.
I'm going to be in Delaware next month. I believe it's March
4th.
4th.
Yeah. We look forward to seeing you then.
Thank you.
Thank you, brother.
Well, thank you, my friend.